We are talking Clemson recruiting. So much has been going on with the Bulls, with the Duke winning the ACC championship, but I don't want to skip by that, skip by this signing day, which is the early signing period. Essentially, is the new signing day in December. It kind of hits you out of nowhere because you haven't even started the playoff. It's bad timing. They need to move it, but let's break it down. Clemson landed 20 new Clemson Tigers, and so that's always something to celebrate. But let's take a realistic look at it and see how we think Clemson did. As I look at this class, there are some big pros. There's also some pretty, if we're being real, some misses, some minuses, and some concerns. So let's hit on both, and we'll start with the positives. And that is at wide receiver and offensive line. But let's start with wide receiver. We have given, both me to some extent, but a lot of people have given wide receiver coach Tyler Grisham a lot of grief about the wide receiver room. He is crushing it in recruiting now. 2 years ago, it was Wesco and TJ Moore. This year, 3 pretty big-time wide receivers, all of which, after watching the tape, I'm pretty high on. Naheem Burrows is the highest-rated guy in the class. He's a slot receiver, and it's perfect timing because Antonio Williams has already announced he's going to the NFL. He's a redshirt junior, so he could have come back for a 5th season, but he'll go to the NFL, which I think is a pretty reasonable choice for him. Naheem Burrows is a guy, should be a slot receiver, should be able to play immediately. I see him competing with Tyler Brown for the starting slot, the spot there. And at wide receiver, that's where you see guys like Tyler Brown, Sammy Watkins, a lot of guys as wide receivers can make an impact as a freshman. Wesco is a true freshman. TJ Moore is a true freshman. So I think he's a big add for this class immediately. I'm really high on Connor Salmon, a speedster, and he's 6'1", so he's not small. He'll play on the outside, not a slot guy. He's also 190 pounds, so he's not like, Wesco was awesome, but when he came in, you knew he needed to add weight. I think Salmon's another guy who, depending on Wesco's health, I could see Salmon making a big impact. This offense for Clemson is just not explosive. You need a guy like Salmon, or the other one, Gordon Sellers, who's 6'3". He is a bit thin at 175 for 6'3". So he does kind of need to add weight, but both Salmon and Sellers, track stars, really could help this offense get explosive again. Take them on top of Tyler Brown, on top of TJ Moore. Is wide receiver the best spot on the roster, offense or defense? I'd say so. I would. And so you got to give Tyler Grisham a lot of credit for that. Great wide receiver class. So that's the first kind of superlative there of the class. The other, I think the biggest area of strength of the class overall, and it's largely because of size, is they added 6 offensive linemen, all of them who look pretty good. Only one's a 3-star, and even he looks pretty darn good. So a little bit about them. These guys chose Clemson over schools like Michigan, Georgia, Alabama, Florida State, Tennessee, Penn State. So these kids had options. They weren't late takes who were going to, Minnesota or, some kind of second choice school. No, these guys had options. They chose Clemson. Matt Luke really making an impact. So of these 6 guys, 2 of them are probably going to be interior linemen, guards or centers. And that's Grant Wise and Chancellor Barkley. Grant Wise, Coach Sweeney raved about Grant Wise. He's already 300 pounds, and I watched his video. He gets upfield. He climbs. He can pull. He can move really well for that size. Coach Sweeney said, and I quote, "He's as good as I've ever seen come through here in our camp. This is a big-time center/guard. Elite, big get for the Tigers." Grant Wise, it's hard to count on offensive linemen in particular, kind of in contrast to what I was saying about wide receiver. It's hard to count on O-linemen coming in and contributing right away. But I think Grant Wise is probably the one of these 6 who could potentially do it. I don't feel great about starting a freshman at center, but maybe get Ronan O'Connell and you get Grant Wise as your starting guards. I could see that. I like Ronan O'Connell from, I guess that'd be 2 classes ago. So I could see that. Maybe you can get away with not adding a transfer at guard because of that. And then you maybe need one still at center and possibly a right tackle, depending on health of some guys, Elijah Thurman in particular. The Chance Barkley, another big add, supposedly one of the most mature guys, charismatic guys. He's the most highly rated of all the offensive linemen, so he's another big add. So it's nice to see. Clemson usually gets all tackles, and then they find a way to move some inside. We even saw Jacobs, who's a left tackle. He played left guard for chunks of the season. necessitated by injury, but still, you see a lot of guys move in. These are guys who are interior linemen. They're great at it. They're going to stay at it. We don't have to move tackles to guard. I know versatility is good, but getting guys to play the right position is also nice. Then there's 4 tackles. The one that jumped out to me was Carter Scruggs. He is just so physical. He could have gone to Michigan, but he chose Clemson. He's a big guy. He gets upfield, and he likes contact, right? I love that. Leo Devaney, another guy who could have gone to Michigan. Guthrie could have gone to Ohio State, probably the best program in the country the last couple of years. So anytime you're beating Ohio State, you feel really, really good. Guthrie's out of Ohio. And then Wilms, he's the 3-star. He did have offers from Arkansas, Florida State, and some others. He's 6'8", but he's a little bit thin, relatively speaking, to be 6'8". So he's one that I would guess Wilms redshirts. And several of these guys will end up redshirting, but this is a really, really good offensive line class. And it's a little different now because you have 105 guys, so there's really no excuse. But for the last decade, Quacking Tigers, a lot of different folks on Clemson media have been begging, take more offensive linemen. The hit rate is so bad in general that you sort of have to just use more scholarships, and just so you'll have a couple work out in a big way. And with 105 scholarships, there's no excuse to not do that. And so you see Clemson now really investing scholarships in the offensive line, and these are not throwaway lottery tickets. These are big-time recruits. So love wide receiver. I love it at offensive line. There's some really big strengths. And then quarterback is an interesting one. Tate Reynolds is pretty highly rated, elite athlete, incredible runner. He also plays baseball. But I watched his highlights, and he's pretty raw. A lot of these highlights are him escaping and then either running or escaping and throwing to guys who he's bought so much time at this, from running around doing his Houdini act. They're wide open. So elite upside, but he's going to skip baseball initially to compete for the starting job. I don't know if he's really going to start right away. I think he may need some time. The other quarterback is Brock Bradley. He's out of Alabama. He's only a 3-star. He's only 5'11". He only has a handful of P4 offers at all. But I watched that tape, and this is the best quarterback I've ever seen. This is incredible. This guy's dropping dimes. He's hitting out routes, opposite hash on time. He's got perfect shoulder placement on deep throws. If the quarterback's on his right, he's hitting it right on the left shoulder so he can catch it. Sharp execution on slants. That's the type of throw. The moves the chains is not flashy, but it's a high, fundamental kind of throw. That's what's not on Tate Reynolds' highlights, that you see a lot of that type of throw for Brock Bradley. Maybe he's Tucker Israel, where he breaks all these high school records, but he doesn't have the size, the strength, and doesn't translate. Maybe. But I can just tell you from watching, he looks awesome. And I feel a little bit like the NFL draft guys who just ignore production, and they're well, this guy is big, so we're going to draft this guy who's never been good in college, but he's big. I don't want to do that now, as I'm evaluating high school talent. So I look at Brock Bradley. Yeah, he's 5'11". He looks incredible. So I'm excited about him. I think he'll be if Clemson doesn't use the portal, he looks to me like the most polished passer Clemson will have, including Vizina, Denson, Reynolds. He looks really good. I don't think he's going to start. I think it's Vizina, Denson, or transfer more likely, but I'm very, very high on Brock Bradley. Really fun. I still want them to get a transfer quarterback. Denson would be really fun. I think anyone else is going to be a little bit disappointing if it's not a transfer, but they all deserve a chance to compete. I think that's what Coach Sweeney is kind of talking about, is that they will compete. Now that's the positives, and I want to be real. That's kind of what I do. So let's talk a little bit about kind of a little bit of the negative here. This is not rankings. Rankings are heavily influenced by how big your class is. This is the individual average rating. So how highly rated are the guys you got? This class has 20. Some classes might have 25. Some might have 16. So this kind of washes that away and just says, on average, how highly rated are the guys that you got, whether it's 1 or 100? What's the average? And you could see after the 2018 championship, you could see it spike up, come back down, and slowly decline. Now, Clemson has won at a very high level, and maybe that's culture and coaching and development, and that's kind of what's eroded lately. So I don't know that this means this is a bad class. Clemson can't win a championship with this level of talent. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that Clemson can't win a national championship with this kind of talent without using the portal. There are some holes in this class, which is fine if Clemson goes out and fills them with the portal. But if they don't, it's going to be a big problem. I want to pause real quick and tell you how you could support this channel. Certainly liking this video and subscribing to the channel helps a lot. And another thing you can do is support our sponsors. One of them, Section 103. They released a line of Clemson apparel. This shirt is part of that line. This one features the Clemson cadence count. They have a lot of other different unique designs that hit on Clemson traditions. They have them on t-shirts. They have good-looking polos and hats. So jump over there, jump to their website, section103.com, and use code RYAN10 for 10% off so they know I sent you. So let's talk about those holes just a little bit. I think the most obvious one, no running back. Not a single running back in the class. It's kind of a big miss. Look, Adam Randall's leaving. Marquise Henderson was dismissed, so that's 2 spots. You didn't fill either of them. Maybe Jay Haynes comes back from injury, and so that's a little bit less of a concern. But if anyone else leaves, which I think is totally realistic, they're not really playing Keith Adams. I've heard no rumors he's leaving in particular, but Jarvis Green, are they going to use him? If these guys were to transfer, let's say they transfer down to a Samford or a Jacksonville State, that would be not totally shocking. And then Clemson would be super thin at a running back. I think this is a miss on CJ Spiller. I think it's really disappointing. I'd love to see them go add some elite portal running back, but at minimum, they probably ought to add a guy who they trust his depth so they don't have themselves in a Maffa situation where they're leaning just way too heavily on Gideon Davidson. That or they need to start trusting Iziomume and Jay Haynes and lean on them a lot, which I don't know if they'll do. But either way, they probably need to add someone from the portal. And then they really have to add a kind of a superstar in the next class. Otherwise, there's going to be a continued gap there at running back. So that's kind of the biggest bummer. But the other thing is there's 20 members of this class, only 7 on defense. And the star rating, only 2 of those 7 are 4 stars. Now, one of them, Kentavion Polo Anderson, looks like a superstar in the making. He's a safety. His highlights don't show a ton of pass breakups and interceptions, more so going downhill to stop the run, but his speed is really impressive. Could even see him at linebacker with that kind of tackling and speed. So he's really exciting. Beyond that, though, this class lacks a couple things. They added one linebacker, Braden Riley, and I like Riley, but it's only one ad. This is the kid who was a Northwestern commit who switched to Clemson, which maybe could raise some alarms because you're pulling kids from, not the most high-end school. But I watched his tape. It's pretty impressive. I like Braden Riley a lot. I think that's a good ad, but you'll lose multiple linebackers and only replace it with one. Wade Woodaz is gone. D. Creighton has transferred. We'll see if more do. Probably moments after I record this and put it live, someone else end up transferring. And then you don't have enough numbers. So now we need to go out to the portal and get either a starter, unless you're going to start Jeremiah Alexander, which you could. You're either going to need to start him and add some depth, or you're going to need to add a pretty good starter at linebacker. So that's kind of a bit of a disappointment of this class. Safety, I love Polo Anderson. You probably needed 2. I could see that being a spot where some kids transfer out at safety. I have no inside knowledge. It just makes sense to me. So I love the Dorman High School product, Polo Anderson. You probably should have added 2 or even 3. They had a second one they wanted who decommitted. So obviously they agreed with that. So I think that's a spot where they're going to have to add 1, 2, maybe more. Plenty of safeties there. They also lose Venables. So that's a gap as well. But the other thing is, not a lot on the D line. No 4 stars, no 5 stars at all on the D line. Amari Adams, Peter Woods, Brian Brzee, Miles Murphy. I'm used to just seeing a Clemson class. That's the spot they're going to hit. They're going to have a big defensive line class. They're going to have 1 or 2 superstars who, even guys like Brzee and Murphy, where it feels like they didn't really work out, there's still these elite 5-star talents who at minimum were above average and then got drafted early. Don't necessarily have that in this class. So that's a bit of a disappointment. And maybe this is nothing. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. But only 2 in-state commits total. One of them was the late flip from East Carolina. He's from Indian Land, like in that Fort Mill, almost Charlotte area. And I like him, even though it's another ECU commit. I thought that was a perfectly fine ad late at defensive end. But to only get 2 in-state kids is kind of a bummer. And then to not get any from Metro Atlanta, which is like just a strong hotbed and pipeline. I want to see kids coming from Atlanta, like Avion Terrell, like his brother, AJ Terrell. That's just a hotbed in Atlanta or Metro Atlanta. Trey Lamar. I mean, there's just so much talent there. And of course, win your state, even if it's not the best state for talent every year in, year out. It's kind of inconsistent. They only had 8 4-stars this year, but of the top five rated recruits in South Carolina, Clemson just got 1, Contavion Polo Anderson. And I love that ad. They didn't even offer the others. And so there's probably some good reason, maybe character, maybe something else, maybe just no interest. And that's fine. But 4 out of the top 5 went to South Carolina. 4 out of the top 8, and only 8 that were 4-stars went to South Carolina. 2 went to Florida State, 1 to Clemson, 1 to Vanderbilt. I'd like to see a few more from South Carolina, a few more from Metro Atlanta. Those are pipelines I want to see go on. So kind of in summary, this class has a lot to be excited about, particularly on offense, especially Polo Anderson on defense. But I'd like to see more numbers. 20 is not enough when you have 105 scholarships, unless you're really going to go add not just 8 depth guys and 1 starter or something like that through the portal, but 10, 11, 12 guys, with some of them being legit starters, 2 or 3 starters, maybe a starter at safety, maybe a starter at linebacker, maybe depending on what Peter Woods and TJ Parker and I guess K-Part's gone, maybe it's a defensive lineman who starts, maybe it's 1 or 2 offensive linemen who start. If you do a class, transfer portal like class like that, you could be excited about a maybe thin but good recruiting class. So that's where I sort of pause and say I can't really grade the class until I see the transfer class and how they kind of blend together, because this could be great. So final thoughts here are class superlatives. The best position group, I think, bar none, offensive line. Maybe the best offensive line class Clemson's brought in like 20 years. Great offensive line class, 6 guys, and none of them are slumps. Pretty excited about that. Early impact watch. I like Naheem Burrows to get a lot of run at slot receiver. I think with Wesco maybe hurt, with Antonio Williams going to the NFL, Burrows has a big chance for an impact. Future star, Polo Anderson, safety on defense from Dorman High School over in Spartanburg area. I don't know if it's immediate. I don't know if he really starts right away. I know Grayson Mann said that, which is interesting. And I could see him definitely getting playing time as a true freshman, just like Ricardo Jones did, not this year, but the year before. Those might be your 2 guys, but I'd rather see a transfer come in and Polo Anderson be brought along a little bit more slowly. But I do think he's a star in the making, so love Polo Anderson. Most underrated is quarterback Brock Bradley, really polished passer. Again, could be a Tucker Israel where he's a nice backup but never really plays meaningful snaps. I could totally see that. And if that's the case, that's probably a good investment of one of your 105 scholarships. But I'm pretty impressed with him. So we'll see how this shakes out when it's paired up with the recruiting class. If those pieces fit together, this could be really great. And that's what we'll have to wait to find out. So thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for supporting our sponsors, Ready Vets and Section 103. As always, go Tiger. Thank you to our sponsor, Ready Vets. If you live in the upstate and have a dog or cat that needs immediate care, Ready Vets is the place to go. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe.